everybody, it is Calxiyn here, and if you guys enjoy this video, you guys should subscribe, ring that notification bell for more RWBY videos, and follow us over on social media to stay updated. So, today we are sort of adopting a theory from a patron, so if you guys don't know, for a certain patron amount, we do take suggestions on what videos to do. Faded sort of made this sort of theory or idea, and it probably won't come to fruition until volume 9, but I was like, I love this, we stand, I'm adopting this, and so now I want to share it with you guys. That's basically, you know what I mean? Okay. I didn't make it, I'm just adopting this as my own child.
And putting it on my YouTube channel and monetizing.
Exactly. So yeah, so this is basically a theory about Cinder fighting Winter, and so I want to establish a couple things for this theory to sort of make more sense to you guys that aren't necessarily updated with every little piece of canon that has come out. In the RWBY companion book, her semblance was confirmed as Scorching Caress. Cinder's semblance allows her to not only superheat objects, but also to manipulate their shape. For instance, she may use this power to heat sand into glass, and then hurl the glass shards as piercing darts. And so basically, like, I was talking about this in my Cinder criticism video, because this is what a lot of people sort of thought her semblance was, or it was something to do with, like, dirt, and stuff like that, which it kind of is.
Yeah,
like,
so,
how many things can you heat up into another thing? Does that make sense? Like, you heat up sand in a glass, but other than that, like, her semblance is kind of dookie. You know what I'm saying? And so
she can make a mean panini.
And so
just
basically
between her hands.
what I was sort of thinking, or what I was sort of saying in that video was like, listen, Cinder's semblance is literally dirt. Like, it is literally dirt terrible, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Sand,
like, I probably used
dirt.
a better play on words there. You know, it's heating up stuff like sand and dirt, and you know what I mean? And so that's like number one, is that the genetic lottery didn't bless her with a hallucination semblance like Emerald. You know
like
what I'm saying? Or aura breaking, or whatever Tyrion
semblance.
can do. You
or
know,
I don't know, semblance for magnetism. That's really
so
helpful.
her semblance is bad. That's number one. So number two, this is going to be the Knights Chronicle sort of reference, and that is that Cinder is jealous of people that are naturally talented or have natural talents. And that is how we get into Winter Schnee. Because a lot of people are going to sort of argue, I think, that Winter isn't naturally talented. Does that make sense? Like, obviously Winter worked for what she got, but remember, like, the Silver Eyes are an inherited trait automatically. You know what I mean? Like, RWBY was born with a natural advantage, right? Like, that's why I don't like to say, like, natural talent, because, I mean, that's the wording that they use, but it's natural advantage, right? Like, your power is only as good as how you use it, and Cinder has used hers to her advantage. Like, she's working with what she has gotten. But other people have gotten natural advantages that sort of, you know, elevate them to some extent. RWBY was naturally born with silver eyes, which makes sense for her resenting RWBY, and that's something I talked about in the Cinder criticism video. But for Winter, it's sort of like, okay, well, what is her natural talent exactly? Remember, the Schnee semblance is hereditary, so she was going to get it you know what I mean? Like, she was going to be born with it regardless, and so that is a natural born talent. That is a natural advantage, right? Because I feel like that semblance is useful no matter what. You know what I mean? If you want to be a huntress, if you want to go out there, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna have to kill some Grimm. And you automatically, like, get the Grimm you kill like fucking Pokemon. So, you know, to Cinder's probably like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not fair, like, in Cinder's head. And so now we're gonna go on to Faded's post. I just had a shower thought and I'd like to share it with everyone. Thanks,
That's
Faded.
where the best ideas come from.
Now that it seems that Winter versus Cinder is pretty much inevitable, because now Cinder's gonna sort of be a maiden, right? Cinder is jealous of those with natural talents. If you all remember correctly, the Schnee semblance is inherited. They're born with the ability to use the glyphs, and the summoning, I'm assuming it's all sort of, you know, connected. A unique semblance that has multiple applications and seemingly has limitless potential, right? Because there's gravity glyphs, there's fire glyphs, you know what I mean? There's obviously the Grimm summoning, like, there's just a lot of stuff going on, you know what I'm saying? And now Winter is in line to be the next Winter Maiden. Winter is the embodiment of everything that Cinder hates. Someone born naturally gifted. It's a perfect opportunity for them to show off her envy and resentment towards people like Winter. It could lead to Cinder's long-awaited backstory being revealed. We may even see the depths of this toxic mentality if she were to fight Winter. So that makes two ways for Cinder's character to develop and become more interesting in the upcoming volumes. First, she has Neo to be her therapist. Second, as I said in the post, use the fight against Winter to explore aspects of her character. I really hope the writers don't miss these opportunities because they're good ways for Cinder to open up. If she gets a clean win without relying too much on her maiden powers, it'll show she has learned from her mistakes in Volume 5. And so then he says, what do you all think? I think that this is perfect. Like, legitimately, I think it's a great idea. And you also have, you know, a sort of play on colors, right? You know what I mean? Like, Cinder is sort of red when you think of her, and then Winter is white, and so it's sort of that, like, white and red, or blue and red, you know, that sort of color contrast, and I really like that when it comes to sort of the villains and stuff. I've talked about that before in a weird way. So, for example, Jafar is red, Jasmine is blue, Ursula is purple, Ariel's green. You know what I mean? So Disney sort of does that, where it's the direct, I think it's like the contrasting color or the opposite color, like whatever in color theory, right? So that would be a nice color theory moment. I appreciate that, Rooster Teeth. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, and this is the obvious one, like, Winter is going through a lot right now, like in terms of her development and in terms of her sort of feelings towards Shock, and I think all the Shnees are gonna get like their own moment to talk about their feelings type thing, because, you know, it's a weird thing to argue because Winter has divided herself from her father, right? It's not like she has all the privileges that money can buy, you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't have the Shnee money and all of that stuff, but she was still born with the natural advantage compared to people like Cinder, and that certainly helped her to get where she is, exactly. And so, you know, people may argue, and I see people arguing this on Reddit, like, oh, well, Winter, you know, she worked with what she has. Like, just because you have privilege doesn't mean that you don't work for what you had. She still worked for it, but she was already sort of elevated to a point where it's like, okay, like, you know, she's a Shnee. And, like, even, like, Winter's like, hey, you know, come join us in the military, Weiss. Ironwood will put in a spot for you. Like, Ironwood already also has that bias for whatever reason, right? And so it's sort of one of those things where she has advantages in life. We're not saying that she, you know, was handed everything. She still worked for it, but she also was born for the advantage. Exactly. She just had these advantages, and I think Cinder will, like, hate that. You know what I mean? Especially when you do consider all the things that the glyphs can do and all the things that Cinder's semblance cannot do, because it's shit. And I feel like that's a part of her backstory too. And if we would like to go back to fairy tale roots, remember that Cinder is supposed to be based on Cinderella, right? And so you sort of have the contrast of the Shnee family to possibly Cinder's family if we were to get a backstory, and I think that's a really good idea, right? Because, you know, with the Winter, it's sort of like Winter has a sister, and then, you know, Cinder and how her sister were treated. Like, it could be a case where she's also maybe, I feel like maybe this would be a little too on the nose, but I could also see her jealous of her relationship with Weiss. You know what I mean? Maybe. Like, if that could somehow be incorporated. Like, I don't know how exactly, but I think that would be interesting for her to be jealous of her relationship with Weiss and her interactions with Weiss, if that is something that like, say, you know, like, Winter and Weiss are both in the vault or whatever, and Winter is also, or Weiss is also helping to protect her sister, and Cinder's like, well, like, isn't this touching? Or, you know, whatever she says, you know.
She would say something like that. I thought I threw a spear in you. How did you get better?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. She's already attacked Weiss, so that could all be set up, right? Like, it could all be set up for the thing. You. Exactly. I love that.
I would say
so
that
good. My mind. I mean, Phaedon's mind, but also my mind. Like, because I connected those last couple dots.
I would say that Winter and Cinder make good foils of each other.
Yes!
Of the argument of... So when you go through the... And I'm surprised we didn't end up doing more videos about the companion book, but in the companion book, they specifically mention both the Cinderella origin for Cinder, and I think it was a quote from Miles going, and if you know anything about Cinderella, you probably know her backstory. So I imagine that she always talked about with Salem, like the idea that I thought you were the girl who wanted power. She so desperately wanted power, but had no immediate ability to gain it. So she had to go to the extremes of cohorting with, you know, Salem, an immortal being that wants to destroy the world.
Yeah.
The exact opposite of that is Winter, who not only, I mean, had the money for training and equipment and easy access into Atlas, but
she
also
abandoned all that in a sense to work for Ironwood. Ooh.
But also it also helps that, like, she wasn't gonna starve. It would have been easier for her than it would have been for someone like Nora and Ren.
Yeah, obviously. I'm just saying it's interesting. She had all of the power she could have, and she gave it away, whereas Cinder had no power, and she wants it.
And
Ooh.
I would maybe that as well, but also the idea, as you mentioned previously, that semblance was hereditary, and I think that's very much so a metaphor for the idea of, I don't know, wealth and social power being given to you because of who you are related to, because of nepotism, and trying to struggle to gain it. That kind of dichotomy of themes, maybe, of gaining power in a society. And I feel like Cinder and Winter represent both of those. And so to have them clash could be really interesting, and could have maybe, as you said, have that be the opening for us learning more about Cinder's backstory. Although you mentioned Neo being the therapist, and I love that idea of like her just being an excellent listener of like...
Well, yeah, because she doesn't say anything, right? So it's like...
It works.
It works. And so yeah, that is it, everyone. I hope that you guys enjoyed this theory, and tell us what you guys think. And remember that you guys can become a patron to suggest a video. Again, there's no guarantee that we will, that will do it. It depends on what it is, right? But chances are, if it's a RWBY theory and it's related, we'll be a lot more like, yeah, let's do it, sort of thing.
However,
right?
if
That's why
your
it's
father
a
is
suggestion.
Jacques Snee and you have a powerful semblance, we are more likely to treat you better.
Anyway, we will see you guys later. Bye.